All right. Are we live? It's actually not showing me the live button. So I don't think it is. McKenna, you can double check that. I'll keep going until you tell me that we're not live. But it's Thursday. It's just past 3 o'clock. It's the time that Ron and I do our live weekly podcast. Although we have missed, I think, 2 weeks in the about year that we've been doing this. And it's all because Ron's always traveling all over the world. All right, McKenna's telling me that we're actually live, so I'll keep going. Well, happy hour. We'll start with the cheers. We'll end with the cheers. I'll tell you what this is all about here in just a second. But cheers, welcome to happy hour. So Ron and I go live on most of our social channels every Thursday. We spend usually about an hour just talking about all things mortgage, all things housing, and you never know where the content might go. We usually kick things off with a little monologue from yours truly, where I'm on social media a lot. It's part of my job, and some things. It's usually things that I share from social media during the monologue. That's usually my topic, but I'll tie in some kind of business lesson. So if you're joining us, whether you're live or whether you're watching this later, we appreciate you. Thanks for joining. Ron's brother Mike usually joins us every week when he can, but he's a busy loan officer, so I know he's not here every week. But when he does, he peppers us with great questions, and we'll bring those up. And if you've got any questions or comments, let us know. We'd love to hear from you. And if it's a discussion point, we'll bring it on. We'll bring your comment on the screen and we'll chat about it. But Ron, welcome back. You had a nice trip.
Yeah, it's good to be back, David. Thank you. And sorry about the technical difficulties last week. I don't remember where I was, but it didn't have internet.
Quite all right. Yeah, we were supposed to go live, and your upload speed, or maybe it was your download speed, was about 1 megabit per second. So it wasn't quite where it needed to be. McKenna, I'm still not seeing us live. Are you sure we're live? Yeah,
I'm
we're
sure
live.
we're
Okay.
live.
All right, I'll keep going. But welcome. Let's get into today's topic overview. So you'll see what we're talking about, and we're changing it up a little bit. You're going to hear the from the gut monologue, and we usually do about 3 main meaty topics and 4 rapid fire. What we're doing this week is we're just doing 4 main topics, so we can spend a little bit more time on each. But this is my from the gut. If you've never seen this guy before, his name is Damon Darling, and he's a content creator, has millions of followers, and he was in the news just the week before last, or no, it was last week, because this was going to be my topic last week, and I was going to find a new one for this week because I like to talk about stuff as it's coming out before even everyone's heard about it when possible. So this is a week later, but Damon Darling, massive influencer, content creator, great overall dude from what I can tell on social media, and there'll be a business lesson tied in with it. Ron, as far as mortgage, housing, AI, what are we talking about this week?
I'm glad you asked. So we're going to talk about United Wholesale Mortgage, which is in the news. We will try not to get onto a rant, but that will be nearly impossible. And then we're just going to talk about the impact that data centers are having on new home construction. We have some interesting data, really interesting data. I think that'll be a good topic.
And next,
buy now, pay later. We're all familiar with it, but we're going to actually look at some of the positive uses for it, and then, of course, the impact it might have on somebody's ability to qualify for a home. And then we're going to, end with it's a chatbot be chatbot world, where now the majority of traffic on the internet is chatbot, driven. And what does that mean in the world today? What does that mean for what we do?
And there's some hilarious examples online of people actually doing that. Have you ever seen, this is not the same chatbot to chatbot, but have you ever seen the video where a guy calls a Chinese restaurant, and actually he calls 2 Chinese restaurants at the same time, and one answers the phone they both think they're answering the phone, like to receive a takeout order or whatever. And the guy who's holding the phones, he doesn't say a thing. He just completely sets them up, lets these two Chinese takeout order people, owners, whoever, talk to each other and they think the other one called them. It's the funniest video. And it reminds me of when you see videos of people making chatbots talking to other chatbots.
No, I have not seen that video.
I'll see if I can find it and send it to you, Ron. All right, well, let's get going. And like I said, going to be talking about Damon Darling. So let's roll it with this week's From the Gut. All right, so like I said, I'm a little late on telling this story because I've still got gnats in my house, because it came out over a week ago, and I'd like to talk about things as they're coming out. And I am going to humble brag for a second, but maybe it's not so humble if I'm actually announcing it. But I was going to talk about this last week, and it was all set to go, had my key points thought through. But then travel got in the way. Ron was gone and we couldn't go live. It's been a week, but I kind of love it because the story from the time that I was going to tell it last week to now has even grown bigger. I love talking about stories before they've hit mainstream media or before they go super viral. I think I kind of hit the nail on the head when I talked about Scotland during the World Cup. It was before my feed was going crazy, but I follow Scottish things because I'm from Scotland. So I think I talked about that before it went mega viral. I talked about Sophie Cunningham while her social media following was exploding and all these things were happening one week after the other with her. And somehow even since then, her story has gotten bigger. Just recently, I think it was last week, she received a pretty harsh foul on a layup, and the other player was ejected for a flagrant 2 foul, and they ejected that player immediately. And in the locker room, she posted on social media about it, and that went viral. If you don't know the story, look it up. It's very interesting. But here we go on Damon Darling, because I think his story is becoming even more interesting than it was, like I said, a week ago, because sometimes the thing that either you or your company is trying the hardest to control is the exact thing you should be figuring out how to embrace. And I think Walmart, and it'll make sense in just a second, Walmart might be staring at one of those moments right now. So if you haven't heard of Damon Darling, he's a comedian and a content creator with get this, more than 12 million followers across all platforms. A lot of his content today is funny and spontaneous. I got spontaneous and spontaneously mixed up, but it's spontaneous. And increasingly lately, not lately, for a while now, it's been incredibly generous. For example, he'll walk into a store, talk to strangers, make them laugh, pay for someone's groceries. Sometimes it's just $1. Sometimes he pays for $300 worth of groceries. He fills people's cars up with gas, just strangers that he meets. And he does it for content purposes, love or hate that. But he's a generous guy. But last week, Damon posted a video showing himself being pulled over by a cop. The police officer trespassed him from all Walmart locations in the country. All of this will make a little more sense when you see this and you see one more video that I've got to play. So McKenna, go ahead and play that first clip.
All right, so you guys are both going to get issued trespass warnings from Walmart, okay? You guys are no longer allowed to go to any Walmarts, any Sam's Clubs, or any Murphy gas station for life, okay? So that is a life ban from Walmart.
Who's issuing that?
What?
Who's issuing that?
Walmart is.
So what? What'd we do?
That's any private business can. I didn't go to Walmart. I just came and.
Well, they can't just do it for no reason.
Yes, I can.
Even if we're not there.
They don't have to have a reason.
But I don't.
Well, can I appeal that?
What?
Can I appeal that?
You can call corporate. Yeah.
I'm definitely appealing that. I'm gonna give it to my lawyer. Have a good day,
fine.
buddy.
You as well.
So as you saw, He'd been trespassed from Walmart properties nationwide, Sam's Club too, and apparently Murphy's gas stations, which I didn't even know was part of the Walmart universe until this story.
Not the old stuffy
Now,
nose there.
not yet, McKenna. Now, if the story ended there, it would be really easy to say, come on, Walmart, you're banning the guy who's buying people's groceries. But there's another side to this. Walmart says this has nothing to do with Damon's charitable giving. The company says he's repeatedly violated its policies through disruptive behavior. And when you look back at some of Damon's older content, there's one video where he jumps on the cashier area, their desk, and he pours milk on himself and he's yelling something, making a scene. So I understand Walmart's point. But that video specifically and some of his crazier videos was from about 7 years ago. And it was back when before he became sober, which he has been now for 7 years. His videos used to be very just prank driven. He'd lie down in front of shopping carts or throw merchandise in people's carts or pull things off shelves and do just silly things that specifically was designed to get a reaction. I don't think he was malicious. Don't think he was trying to hurt anyone. He was a comedian, just making prank videos. But if you're the person responsible for running the store, Walmart, I get it. That is disruptive. So I'm not sitting here saying Walmart has absolutely no reason to be frustrated with him. They do. But here's where I think the story gets really interesting. Because Damon says his content has changed. He grew up, the content matured, the silly antics became less important, and helping people became more important. And I think there's something all of us can relate to that. Sometimes you become a different person before everyone else updates their opinion of you. Your reputation may have been earned 5 years ago, but you're still carrying it today, and that is difficult because all of us want grace for the old versions of ourselves. We say, I've changed. I wouldn't do that now. That's not who I am anymore. Yet sometimes we're not nearly as willing to believe someone else when they tell us the same thing. Now, before I go any further, I want you to understand why I'm talking about Damon the way I am. You'll see kind of some of his content today. McKenna, go ahead and play that second video.
Not the old stuffy nose there.
Oh,
About to blow the schnoz.
yes,
on me,
I
Mom.
am. Sorry.
You want me to hold it?
No.
Well, I tell you what, Meemaw. Let me buy your cart for you.
Buy my cart.
Yeah, can I buy your cart?
What are you talking about? You mean pay for all this?
Yeah, pay for all that.
Why?
Because I like helping less fortunate in my community.
Are you serious?
Yeah. I got a big old knot and I just don't know what to do with it.
You for real?
Yeah, I'm for real. Do you think I'm lying to you, girl?
No.
Yeah. What else do you need? Are you done shopping?
I'm done now.
Yeah.
You went and got rich.
Yeah, I went and got rich.
How'd you do that?
Just using the brother talents. The talents of a brother.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, you know, brothers got them extra muscle.
Done.
Well, let's go.
You sick?
I'm dead serious.
I see you on Facebook.
Hi, how are you?
How are you?
I'm
You
good.
know this dude?
Yes.
Yes.
He is a
He for
famous
real?
TikToker.
I was just telling her I was rich and famous.
Yes, he is. Oh my God, my heart is racing.
And I got out of there and decided I was going to go get rich.
So that's the Damon of today. But again, I guess Walmart has legitimate operational reasons for their decision. But from a marketing standpoint, I can't help thinking Walmart might be looking at this entirely the wrong way for trespassing them. Because what if the question isn't, how do we stop Damon Darling from filming inside our Walmarts? What if the question is, how could we work with this guy? Companies spend millions of dollars every year trying to create what Damon already has. They want personality, authenticity, reach, virality, a connection with ordinary people. Walmart doesn't need Damon to sell groceries. They're Walmart, for crying out loud. But when was the last time you associated Walmart with an actual personality who made you think, this looks fun? Imagine instead of banning him, they sat down with him, set some boundaries, no disrupting customers or interfering with employees. And then, hey Damon, what if we send you around the country? Go into Walmart stores, surprise families, pay for groceries, help veterans and teachers and single parents and just people who are generally struggling. And then Walmart becomes part of that story. Imagine people, and people kind of do this right now where he lives, but imagine people walking into their local Walmart, wherever they're at in the country, wondering whether Damon might show up. Imagine Walmart taking someone they once viewed as a problem and turning him into an asset. And here's what's fascinating. While Walmart has apparently decided Damon isn't someone they want inside their stores, other people are starting to look at him and see exactly what I'm talking about here. Since I originally planned this monologue a little over a week ago, Damon posted a photo with Zachary, I don't know how you pronounce his last name, but Daronowski, better known as MD Motivator on YouTube, TikTok. And if you don't know Zachary or MD Motivator, his entire platform is basically built around changing strangers' lives, not giving them 20 bucks or even 100 like Damon does. I'm talking about he gives away houses and cars and tens or sometimes hundreds of thousands of dollars, life-changing gifts. And he's not some small creator. He has roughly 55 million, almost 5 times as many as Damon. He has roughly 55 million followers and subscribers across all channels. So now you've got one of the biggest charitable creators in the world connecting with Damon. And then something else happened that I absolutely love. Damon shared a screenshot that he got, a direct message from Jumpman, Michael Jordan's brand. They reached out to him and praised what he's been doing and they wanted to send him a goodie bag with shoes and apparel. And they said in the message, sometimes a ban is just the beginning of greatness. And that one made me laugh because a lot of you'll remember this, but one of the most famous stories in sports marketing history involved Michael Jordan himself getting into trouble in the NBA over his black and red Nike shoes in 1984. The NBA fined him $5,000 every game he wore them, and Nike happily paid the fine for him. And we all know how Jordan's story went from there on. So there's something almost perfect about Jordan's brand now looking at Damon and essentially saying, maybe being banned isn't the end of your story. And that's the part I think businesses missed all the time. We become so focused on eliminating friction that sometimes we eliminate opportunity with it. Something doesn't fit the normal corporate structure, so we shut it down. Somebody behaves differently, so we label them difficult. Or an employee has an idea that makes everyone uncomfortable, so we explain why it can't work. And sometimes the better question isn't, how do we make this go away? It's, is there something valuable inside this that we haven't figured out how to use yet? And there's another reason I think Walmart should at least have that conversation. Damon had every opportunity to make their lives miserable. His followers were furious. People starting calling for Walmart boycotts. He has millions of people who would have happily gone to war for him online. So from a pure social media standpoint, outrage probably would have generated even more attention, and he didn't do it. He actually did the opposite. He told his followers not to boycott Walmart. Don't stop shopping there. Don't create more drama. He said he respects the company's decision and he'll stay away. and he wants to continue bringing love and laughter instead. He even said he still loves Walmart, and that maybe the strongest evidence that that might be the strongest evidence that he's really matured, because the old version of Damon created content by trying to provoke negative reactions. In this current version of Damon, he's the one that's been doing the same content now for years, and he was handed the biggest opportunities of his career to provoke that reaction, and he chose restraint. That's growth. Not telling everyone you've changed, but showing them. And I think there's two lessons here for the rest of us. The first is personal. Your past may explain your reputation, but it doesn't have to determine who you become. You're allowed to grow, you're allowed to evolve. Your content can evolve, your personality can evolve. The thing that got attention 5 years ago doesn't have to become the character you're forced to play forever. Sometimes growth means realizing, yeah, that worked then, but I'm not that person anymore. And the second lesson is for business. Be careful about permanently defining people by an old version of themselves. Because while you're protecting yourself from who someone was, you might completely miss who they've become. Because in the span of a little more than a week, Walmart banned Damon. Millions of people rallied behind him. One of the largest generosity creators in the world connected with him. And Michael Jordan's brand reached out to encourage him and send him gifts. And the national media even was telling his story. It was on TMZ. Maybe Walmart ultimately decides the ban should remain. That's their right. But if I were sitting in a Walmart marketing meeting right now, I'd at least ask the question: are we banning a problem, or are we banning an opportunity? Because sometimes the best marketing campaign doesn't come out of a conference room. Sometimes it walks through your front door, makes everyone laugh, pays for someone's groceries, and gives you the opportunity to turn a complicated relationship into something people might actually love. And sometimes a ban really might be the beginning of something much bigger. And that is my From the Gut for this week.
David, I
Yes,
enjoyed
sir.
it as always. Very insightful. Loved it. I don't 100% align with some of your conclusions, but it was a great From the Gut.
I can you give me the Cliff Notes version of your disagreements?
I want to say I disagree. The one thing about Walmart, why I think that they made the wrong decision and acted incorrectly, but I understand how just because something's popular doesn't mean it's brand alignment. And so I'm not so certain there's brand alignment in what you're suggesting, trying to use his popularity and his approach for their brand. I don't think it aligns perfectly, which is their choice. That doesn't mean I would have treated him that way, but I don't know if I would, promote him to an ambassador.
But what would you say falls into Walmart's brand and identity? I think they don't really have one. We know what they stand for: cheap groceries and convenience. But when you're talking about content creation, which is what a lot of large success, I'm not saying you have to do that if you're a large organization, but Walmart's the type of organization that has a huge opportunity in front of them. So what would you say would align with their brand?
Yeah. By the way, I think they're masters at curating their own brand and their message, and I also might disagree. While he has a big audience, it pales in comparison to Walmart's influence, quite frankly.
True.
So I'm not taking issue with you. As I say, I think it was a poor choice on their part. But the one thing I wanted to align with, David, I oftentimes, as you know, I coach a few executives and a few loan officers, and I talk all the time about when they go to a conference. And when you go to a conference, and David, you've been to conferences or think of sales rallies, whatever it is, and And you go as who you are when you get there, and you get all this content poured into you and all this change, and you leave wanting to be a changed person, but you go back to an environment that sees you as you were when you left, not as who you are when you come back, which is exactly what you're pointing out. People see your past as you, not your evolution as who the new you is, and they don't believe the new you. And that's what he was struggling with, and we all struggle with. And learning how to overcome that, to get the right to be the person you are, have evolved to, is a skill set, actually.
Yeah. I don't necessarily disagree with the fact that maybe it wasn't a right fit for Walmart. It was just a thought. However, I think in the last 15 years, every salesperson has become a branding expert, right? Everyone's got their opinions on individual brands, and I think everyone's a so-called expert these days. And I've talked with you, Ron, about some of those things, but I think because it's been a buzzy word now, it's lost some of its steam, but it became a very buzzy word in the mid-teens, as social media was out of its infancy stage, and influencers were becoming a thing, that everyone's now an influencer expert, and there's life coaches or brand experts and so on. And I think people can sometimes have analysis paralysis of lining up that doesn't fit my brand, or this isn't in our brand alignment and so on. I think I've seen it more times than I can count where you have that analysis paralysis of trying to be on brand.
Yeah, you can't be so far on brand that you're not yourself.
Right.
Like your brand cannot overrun your authenticity, which
Hmm.
sometimes we let it do that.
Yeah, yeah. I just think maybe it could have been a fun temporary social media campaign for Walmart. No, I'm not saying they should make him the poster child of Walmart. It could have just been a fun, 6 week long social media campaign that drives more audience. Anyway, I think we've talked about this for long enough.
It's good, David. It was really good. And your points were well taken.
Yeah. All right, McKenna, let's move on to our first topic.
All right. It'll be interesting to see how we handle this, David. So here's what's happened. United Wholesale Mortgage had to report their quarterly numbers, which were not good. And they continue to lose a ton of money. And their stock is nearly delisted. It's dropped below $1 at one point, which means it's a penny stock and can't be on the stock exchanges. It's dropped from a high of whatever $13 down to $1, which is a huge problem. They had these massive losses, and the industry, David, kind of has their knives out for United Wholesale Mortgage, because one of the undercurrents is that United Wholesale Mortgage has underpriced mortgages for the last 4 or 5 years and has essentially squeezed out about 18 basis points of margin across the entire industry, which has single-handedly made the industry almost not viable or profitable. And Matt there, Matasheba, has been pretty arrogant about how they've solved the puzzle, and that's why they can deliver mortgages at a low rate and still make a profit. But what happens is that they're really not making a profit, and they're using a bunch of accounting tricks to try to show a profit. And in so doing, they've really over leveraged themselves and really risked the viability of the company. For example, and this has been going on for quite a few years, they retain their servicing or buy servicing, and then they value it different than everyone else in the industry. So let's say the rest of the industry values servicing at, say, a 2.5 times multiple. United Wholesale Mortgage values it at a 3.5 times multiple. Well, the problem is, no, you can claim whatever you want as the value of your servicing until you have to go sell it. And so if they had to actually market to market, they would be insolvent. They wouldn't be able to continue doing business if they were forced to use an actual market price for their servicing. And you go, well, what's the big deal? Well, one of the things is that they've inflated the price of their servicing so that they can extract liquidity out of their company. And they did that in the form of these really false high dividends. And they paid these extraordinarily high dividends for quite a few years, which while they're essentially losing money, but they're hiding those losses by overvaluing their MSRs. And the thing is, the Ashibas owned 81% of the company. So it was essentially a way to deliver $6 billion to the Ashiba family by overpricing MSRs, all while really having operating losses. And that's resulted in the value of the company going from $12 or $13 per share of stock down to $1. Now, most recently, they had some really odd accounting things happen, including they had a hedging write-off of over $600 million. And nobody can quite understand what happened, which just makes you even more uneasy. What they told stockholders is, look, we had to hedge the MSRs that we're going to get from Two Harbors, and we had to hedge it even though we didn't own them, because we were going to have essentially runoff, and we were going to have to hedge this thing. And so they said, but then the transaction didn't go through, and so the result was we lost over $600 million. But what's so peculiar about that, David, is that one, Two Harbors was already fully hedged. It was fully hedged. It didn't need additional hedges. So that's kind of odd. And second, United Wholesale Mortgage didn't even own them. And so, okay, they're doing an advanced hedge, but they continued to press the hedge even when it was clear that they weren't going to get the acquisition, which is odd. And then next, they were hedging 13x, meaning if you were really going to fully hedge that acquisition, they were doing 13 times the level of hedging that they needed to do to protect it. And remember, it was already fully hedged by Two Harbors. And then finally, my understanding is that MSR book is the very low coupon book. It shouldn't have a lot of runoff. So I'm not even sure why they're so crazy about that hedge. And as it's come under scrutiny now, as the public is going, what were you talking about? What's this hedge? And as they started squeaking a lot of noise, Two Harbors has actually gone, look, what are they talking about? We're fully hedged, didn't have to hedge. Plus that hedge was 13 times what they would have needed. What it really turns out, David, and they haven't admitted to this yet, but they're being forced to, is they simply were making bets in the market on which way interest rates were going to go, regardless of what security they were trying to hedge. It was just like a bet on futures. And they bet wrong and lost $600 million and then try to blame it on a hedge against Two Harbors. And they're making these wild speculations because they're really not profitable, and they have to fill this huge gap. And so they're taking these gigantic risks. And just like they're taking risk in their MSR valuations, they're taking risk by these fake hedges. It's very scary. And that $600 million, they're very much under, they do not have enough liquidity. And that $600 million loss cut their assets in half. And it's really, they're in a precarious situation right now. And so they had to go to essentially a hard money lender that is really the lender of last resorts for troubled corporations. And they really had to sign a deal with the devil that said, hey, look, if we don't perform the way that we're promising you, you got to take over our company. You just got to take over our company, right? And because nobody else will. And we're not liquid. We're not even viable right now. And so they went to this, lender of last resort, and they gave it a seat on the board. That gets more and more authority as they fail higher and higher and higher, which is a really troubling thing. It's the place that most companies go before they're liquidated, which isn't a really good sign. Now, could United Wholesale Mortgage turn around and pull a rabbit out of the house? Of course. And I want to say, I'm a fan of United Wholesale Mortgage. I think they've positively impacted the industry. I think their tech platform and the value products they give to the brokers, I think they're magnificent. So I'm not coming to them as a hater. I'm super concerned, though, that it is a house of cards. And I'm not the only one saying this. There's a flood of information on United Wholesale Mortgage and these practices right now that are highly, highly suspicious. And David, it's there's a lot of questions. I was reading a local article the other day is, will Matt be able to retain ownership of the Suns? Maybe, maybe not. Will he be able to stay in charge at United Wholesale Mortgage? Maybe, maybe not. Will United Wholesale Mortgage actually make it? Maybe, maybe not. Is there actually criminal, indictments coming? No, I highly doubt that, but maybe, maybe not. Those are all bad rumors that you want to have. And Matt's had to respond with a lot of bravado going, hey, look, if we were number 500 in the company, not number one, nobody'd be talking about us. Any talk is good, and we've never been better or stronger. I'm like, I don't know about that. But David, how does this strike you? You're familiar with this topic. What do you think about it?
I think a lot of people just naturally associate size of a company with success and safety. The biggest lender, biggest bank, biggest company, but we've seen that prove not to be true so many times. Wells Fargo, but the biggest example I can think of is Countrywide, 2008 and before. And so uh, I'm not suggesting they're going to go out of business, but what if let's play in the extreme world for a second and say it was another Countrywide. They closed their doors. What would that do to the rest of the market?
Yeah, I mean they're the number one market share by a long way, but there are plenty of people that can fill the gap. Today. There are plenty of wholesale outlets could fill the gap. Now, can they do it as well as United Wholesale Mortgage? No. Would it be a strain on those loan officers and those kind of super correspondents that do business with them that are
Hmm.
used to their technology? It would be a real strain on those folks. But the market would absorb all that excess, demand without a problem. Um,
Yeah.
Now, what's happened? What's interesting, David. What's happened is Wholesale Mortgage has gone from being a low price leader to now having kind of an inflated rate because they got to fill the cupboard back with money, or else they're not going to make it.
Right.
And yet their platform is so valuable. If I was a broker, I would go to it even if it had a higher rate, because it has so much better underwriting and technology and customer journeys and all these things and retention. I would pay a premium, whatever that was. Let's say it was an eighth of a point or quarter point to rate to be able to access that. But it's a really interesting environment right now that they're facing.
Right. Who's the number two wholesale
Number
lender?
two, number two is Rocket.
Oh, in wholesale.
Yeah, and then I think it's Penny Mac, and then it's New Res.
Okay. Yeah. So there's plenty of big players that would fill that gap.
Oh, 100%. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So it's an interesting story, and David, we were talking about this. I'm conflicted because I'm a fan of United Wholesale Mortgage. I don't know what happened here. The best, and this is getting into editorial land, but Matt was a walk-on basketball player from Michigan State during their national championship year. He's a raving fan. His life dream has been to own an NBA team. He got a chance to try to do that with the Suns, and he probably wasn't yet ready financially to do that. And so he's really had to stretch to make it happen. And I think and this is me guessing, and it's unfair for me to guess. My guess is that's what led to some of these kind of aggressive accounting practices, and the $6 million of, equity he took out of the company, $6 billion. But,
Right.
I hope the best for the company, actually.
Right. So your brother has some comments on LinkedIn. The platform that we use to stream this, it can't pull in comments from LinkedIn. It's the only platform it can't pull in comments from. So I'm going to read one. This is a pretty good one. Are UWM's actions fraudulent? SEC violation? Stockholder lawsuit? Any thoughts on that, Ron?
Yeah, well, there's already a class action lawsuit about misrepresentation, 100%, Mike. And we don't know how this is going to play out, but I think that this is just the outer skins of the onion. And we're going to get deeper, and it's not going to get any prettier. And more than likely, because there's been a lot of calls for him to be ousted, I wouldn't be surprised if this catches fire a little bit and he
Hmm.
loses control,
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Mike's peppering us with questions, which we love, and he asked if they failed, what would be the impact on the industry? But I think that's pretty much the same question I asked before I saw his comment.
Yeah, yeah, Mike. I mean, that volume would be absorbed. The other major players could easily absorb that, and then you see the players that are on the fringe come back in. United Wholesale Mortgage drove so many of the medium-sized players out of the market because they just weren't going to compete at a negative margin. But now that that margin pressure is evaporated a little bit, and that you can operate at a profit, you see some of those lenders that got out of wholesale come back into it, up to including Mike the banks. You could see the banks, Wells Fargo, Chase, come back into wholesale if the margin was okay. You see places like Home Depot really fire back up their wholesale operation as well as other IMBs, and that they would quickly fill that opening.
Yeah. What do you say we talk about the controversial topic of AI centers, data centers?
Yeah, you know what, David? It's not as controversial as you think when we approach this topic because we're not trying to get into are data centers good or bad, but what the interesting impact is what they're having on new construction. And we're using a HousingWire article, which is a great article on this. I think that Flavia wrote this, if I remember right. Let me see if I can get to it. But here was the deal. It was Sean McManus. But here's the thing. One of the things they highlighted is that a builder had purchased a lot. They were going to build 516 homes on it. I think it was Stanley Martin Homes. And they invested about $51 million to try to entitle and develop, to purchase the lots, to entitle them, to get them ready to build. And Amazon came in and bought it from them for $700 million to build a data center on it. Wildly overpaid. And this is a common thing where these big tech companies are and trying to get the right lots are willing to overpay for them. And so, I mean, that's far more money than the builder would have made if they would have built the homes and sold them. And so in this case, acquisition by Amazon took 516 new homes off the market, which isn't necessarily a lot. Now, that's one way that we're starting to see these data centers start to crowd out new construction. But the other way is once, let's say, a data center is scheduled to be built, well, it competes for the same resources as new construction. I mean, it needs the same materials, the same contractors, all the same things, and it has a lot more money. And so what's happening is like the electricians are going to the data centers, the excavators, the materials, all that stuff is now flowing to the data centers and is starting to starve new construction from those resources. So there's a couple things happening here. It's not just the elimination of land because these tech companies can pay a lot more for them, but they're also paying more for the resources necessary to build houses. And so those resources are flowing to the data centers. As you see more data centers getting built, you're going to see more problems. And so we're not even touching the hot button issues like what's the impact on utilities. Let's just assume they can build data centers that don't rob local neighborhoods of the energy or water. And that's another thing. Cities now are prioritizing hookups, permitting hookups to the data centers, not the new home construction. So when you call to get your, electrical permit signed off, they're going to go to the data center first, not to the new construction lot. And so there's a lot of things that are just starting to have some beginning influence on new construction, David.
You said you don't think it's is negative or as much in the news as what I thought. I think it is. I've seen a ton of it, and I looked this up not long before we went live. I was curious about how many employees, people these data centers employ, because quite often you think about massive buildings like this. I went through it when, just 5 miles down the road from here, 10-ish years ago when we were building the new campus for Movement Mortgage. There was a lot of buzz about it. Like there's new commerce coming, there's new industries coming to this area, which used to be very, very rural. But they did it off in a business park. And from what I've seen, the hate that these data centers are getting is like they're in the middle of neighborhoods or butting up next to neighborhoods, not in business parks or out where you would expect to see these factories and so on. But the size of the facility and the amount of workers that it takes to actually keep it operational. So it broke it down into small, medium, and large facilities. Small takes 18 to 15 workers, medium 15 to 35 workers, and large hyperscale facilities, where is it 35 to 300 workers. And that's not a lot of people for the amount of space and acreage that these take up. I think about the building that we built when I was a long time ago at Movement Mortgage. it was 100,000 square feet, the first building was, but it was 2 stories. So the actual the footprint that it took up wasn't massive, but that building alone was 700 people. So I think about all of those things and the hate that they're getting. Number one, they're nestled in neighborhoods or butting up next to neighborhoods, not in rural areas or in business parks. The amount of noise they create, and quite often that would be a good thing if it's bringing a boost to your economy, but these are only adding, not even 300 jobs for such a large footprint.
Yeah, so I wasn't actually making the argument for or against data centers. I was only trying to compare or look at their impact on new construction. So I was only looking at a very small sliver, David. And if we're going to debate that the impact of data centers on overall society, we probably would fall on different ends of the coin there, I think. Because where you could say, gosh, they're only creating 300 operational jobs. Well, that's after they spend $100 billion on the facility, which all goes into the local economy. So I
That's
would, and
true.
then not to mention the tax implications. Some of these places, like we were building in West Virginia, the tax roll could actually give each citizen in that jurisdiction $100,000 income a year, regardless of how many employees. So, but I wasn't even arguing that. I was simply looking at the impact that's having on new construction, and as an early signal and what to try to understand from that.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's a whole nother ball of wax. The amount of houses that it's displacing and so on, which is a real issue.
Which is not what I mean. That's what our job is, being in real estate and mortgage, David. And it's not something that people talk about. So I was just looking at that one layer of it.
Yeah,
The bigger picture, there's certainly a lot of controversy around it. There's no doubt about it.
right, right. I wonder what
I
McKenna's
love the,
thoughts are
by the
on
way,
it.
I love the people. I love the people that fight the most against these data centers. How they post to social media using ChatGPT to create their posts. It's just the most beautiful thing.
Right, right.
That dude Roe, in California, 100% of his content comes from ChatGPT as he rails against AI companies. You
Roe,
just
I don't
simply
know who you're
can't be
talking about.
stupider human. You can't be a stupider human being than he is.
I don't know who it is.
Dude, he's famous. He's the one that's authoring the wealth tax in California, rails against data centers and AI companies.
What's his full name?
I don't. It's he goes by Roe. That's all I can tell you. That's his first name.
Okay.
I'll
Maybe I
send
know
you
him. I
stuff,
don't.
but it's an amazing thing. I mean, his posts almost say generated by ChatGPT on them. As he rails against ChatGPT, it's like
Yeah, yeah.
like you just can't be dumber.
Right, right. Alrighty, moving on. What are we talking about next? Oh, BNPL.
Yeah, this is interesting, David. I came across an article in the Wall Street Journal on buy now, pay later, and it was just saying how much it's grown. It's grown to, I think the number is $160 billion a year in commerce, and that pales in comparison. By the way, we spend $3 trillion a year on our credit cards. But what surprised me, like the negatives of it and the fear mongering around it, I totally understood. And the way it's framed is buy now, pay later is used by desperate people, desperate or ignorant people, and I was respectful of that. But it was we associated with high risk behavior, and because it originally came out so you could buy $400 sneakers and do it on a payment plan. But what was interesting is that this article had a pretty good chunk of the article. The author was a skeptic of buy now, pay later, but they acknowledge that there's actually some really good features to buy now, pay later, which I wasn't even aware of. And where they said it could make financial sense, it could be a good tool for some people. Now, they weren't an advocate of it, but for example, there's not necessarily a high interest rate, and there's definitely no compound interest, and there are no late fees for the most part, compared to if you're using a credit card. And so there was reasons why it would make sense to use it, which I was just surprised about. The thing is, if you're in mortgage, what we know is that most buy now, pay later payments don't show up on a credit report. And so you really have to do a really good analysis of people's bank statements to see if you see evidence of those type of setups, those type of payment arrangements. And the reason why you do that is if you're really trying to advise somebody on their what they can afford to buy, you really need to be able to take into account their entire obligations, and which now you sometimes have to kind of sleuth that out by looking at their bank statements. David, what's your thought? I'd actually like to get McKenna's thought. McKenna, what's your thought on this buy now, pay later?
Um, Not that many thoughts from me. I was also a little bit busy behind the scenes doing a couple things here and there, but unfortunately there isn't much that I have to say other
Have you ever
than
done it?
no. At least I don't
No.
believe I have. I mean, I think
Uh,
I've kind of I was forced to take like Dave Ramsey, this, that, and the other, and also just kind of with how my parents are, like with credit cards, don't spend money that you don't have. That's kind of
yeah.
been my kind of thing. But for like small things, like I'm excluding like car loan, home loan, stuff like that. But like if I'm going out and I want to get something like a TV for a few $100, I don't have a few $100 in my bank account. I'm just not gonna buy it. I'll save. However, not to knock people that do that, I just haven't done it.
Yeah. Do any of your friends? I mean, is this a thing? It's growing. I mean,
This is the first that I have ever heard about it. I mean, I know that there's like payment plans for certain things, but this is from what I understand, this isn't a payment plan kind of thing, correct?
it is really, it is a payment plan. But what's interesting, this is like, if you go back to layaway, which probably is way before your time, McKenna, you used to be able to go to, like, you're going to go Christmas shopping and you want to get somebody, I don't know, say a fur jacket, and you didn't have enough money. So you lay it away, meaning you ask them to reserve it for you and you make payments. And once you made all the payments, you actually get the product. What's interesting about the modern version of that is you actually get to consume the product first and then make payments
Yeah.
afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
And now they've extended that they actually do buy now, pay later. There's these companies, Flex and Zip, that you can actually pay your utilities bill using the buy now, pay later. And there's a lot of companies that feature, on how to extend making your monthly rent payment. You can do it. You can extend it into weekly payments for a couple months versus having to make your payment up front. And for some people, these are a lifeline that they absolutely need. Like
Yeah.
25% of people that use these say, I couldn't make my payment without it. And of that, a large percentage of them have multiple buy now, pay later accounts set up. But it's an interesting thing. It's a growing thing. It's doubling every year. It's still small compared to credit cards, but it's doubling every year.
I mean, as far as like rent and utilities for people that are in a tough position in the moment, that sounds like a fantastic thing as long as it's used well and responsibly. It sounds like it could really be a lifeline for people. So that sounds like, again, used responsibly could be fantastic.
Yeah, a lot of times, I mean, the article cites when there's a shock to your everyday, expenses, like somebody gets sick or you can't work, or you have to. Let's say your parents get sick and you are on their deathbed. You got to travel to go see them. You don't have any money. These buy now, pay later's kind of help you with your cash flow while you deal with the uncertainty of what you weren't expecting. And so for those things, it could be a good device.
Mm-hmm.
Let me reach
David, what
over
do you thought?
here, pick up my boomer hat, and put it on for a second.
All right.
But I think we're now creating a generation of consumers. And when I say generation, I'm not talking about age. It could be a 18-year-old, it could be a 60-year-old, but it's a generation. So I guess generation, there's a better term than generation, but we're creating a segment of society who don't really think in terms of total price anymore. They're just thinking about what's my monthly payment. And I think that's where people are, why we see so much debt right now. I forget the number of how much consumer debt the country is in, but it's more than ever, I believe. And it's just when I get that there can be an upside to buy now, pay later for stuff like rent or your electricity bill. But when you're already doing that with so many other things, with buying your next TV, with having 17 streaming services that you're paying for, and you're like, well, what's a monthly payment? I just think it's raising a segment of society that is going to be severely harmed from it if it keeps going down that road. The new iPhone is scheduled to come out next, not scheduled, rumored to come out next month. And it sounds like Apple are now going to offer, like, we know you can, uh, when you go through a Verizon or AT&T, you can just add it onto your monthly payment. But now evidently through Apple, you can start leasing your phone when they bring out their new ones in September. So when everything goes to a lease option and you don't own anything or whatever, or you're indebted on half the shit that you own, I just think it puts that segment of society, however big or large it is, in a huge risk type situation.
Sure.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, I was
Go
just
ahead,
gonna
McKenna.
say, yes, that's the case. However, again, that just depends on the consumer, and it may boil down to financial education. But if there's
Hmm.
somebody that's using this responsibly, it could make the difference between being able to pay rent and being able to eat that week. And so it
Yeah.
seems like the yes, there are risks, but those are risks that people will have to be able to take, hopefully knowingly. Some people might not be able to understand, and so I think that's kind of why financial education is so important, which is something that I know that the both of you are very passionate about. But again, there are risks. There's risks with anything to do with money, even with credit cards, where people don't know how credit cards work, and then that puts them into, uh, you know, tens of thousands of dollars of debt. But if people are able to use it responsibly or use it in the way that it's meant to, it could save them. Again, the difference between paying rent and also being able to eat for that week.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. For me, I was surprised by some of the data in the article. I thought I kind of had a general grasp of buy now, pay later. It just opened my eyes a little bit, and I still don't have a firm opinion whether it's good or bad. And it could be both. To your point, McKenna, if used right, it could be good, and if used poorly, it could be bad. And it's a developing product. I think it's going to have more impact as it keeps growing, and we'll just have to see what it all means.
We've got a couple good questions from your brother, Mike. Ron, do you want to hear them?
Yeah, heck yeah.
Does buy now, pay later borrow from future demand? I'm not
That
even
is
sure
a
what that means.
really
What does that mean?
that's a really good question. Mike, and it does. I mean, in that it allows somebody to buy immediately so that they won't be buying
Oh,
later.
okay.
So the demand is moved forward. But I don't think it's so significant that it will actually impacts the full supply and demand spectrum. Because whether I buy that, whatever it is, today or in 3 weeks, it's not significant enough to move the needle. But yes, it does pull demand forward by
And here's a
creating more
more
ability.
and here's a more housing or mortgage related one. Do the agencies have guidance around buy now, pay later commitments if when they're identified?
Yeah, you know what, Mike? It's not that I know of. So they say you're supposed to take into account, but how do you take into account when everything is AUS, driven? Like the AUS overrides everything. How many underwriters are going to go, "Hey, I think I see a buy now, pay later, even though you have an
Yeah.
AUS approval, I'm going to decline the loan." Can you imagine a loan officer? They'd lose their mind if that happened. And by the way, underwriter would be fully within their authority to do so, but that's just not how we operate today. Now, but this is such a new thing that Fannie and Freddie are trying to figure out, and as well as Jenny are trying to figure out how to get in front of it. First, Mike, there's been a huge push to try to get credit reports or credit companies to report these buy now, pay later. But what's happening is these buy now, pay later companies refuse to give the fee to the credit companies. If they don't get the fee, they can't report it. And so it's one of those new technologies that's going to have to be governed at some point. We'll have to see how it evolves. Right now, it's so small at $160 billion a year, it's not that big a deal. But you're going to see once it becomes significant, once it gets to that $1 trillion a year, you're going to see a whole bunch of regulation come to fore on this, and then we'll solve or make it worse, all these issues we're talking about.
Let's wrap up the segment with our final, or not the segment, but the show with our final topic where we're talking about, AI, new status symbol. Ron?
Yeah, I like this topic, and David, we may not agree on this topic, nor will everybody listening agree. But the interesting point of this is another New York Times article, and the article is like we're getting to a world where it's just chatbot, talking to chatbots. First, the majority of content on the internet is now created by a chatbot, and then but it went on to say, look, today if you're applying for a job, you're going to have your chat bot go through the application process, and the company you're applying to is going to have a chat bot review it. And it might actually the two first or three first, levels may be chatbot to chatbot. If you're on a dating app, more than likely you're using your chatbot to create your content for the dating app, and the person that's screening you is using a chatbot to screen you. And we could keep saying this over and over and over and over again. If you're a student in college, you're using a chatbot to write your essay, and the professor is using a chatbot to grade your essay. And so that's why I'm saying it's a bot to bot world, more and more and more and more. And so the question is it good or bad? And in a recent LinkedIn post, I said it was good, because here's the thing: for the longest time, companies have had the advantage over consumers. And I'll have to tell you, you're going to get this, where you're going to align with this when I say this. Just think of voicemail hell, right? When you get into the phone tree, like you call up a company and it gives you a computer to direct. Oh, is that Bodie?
That's Duncan.
Duncan, it gives you you get into their voicemail hell, and it's directing you, press 1 for this, press 4 for this, do this, tell me your social security number, do this, do this. Like, you're in hell right there, right? So if I can unleash a chatbot to have to deal with that, great, good, really good, right? Or, now companies have chatbots calling you to solicit, right? If my chatbot can answer the phone and give it the middle finger, great. If I can, so I can use my chatbot to defend against the whole world that's unleashing their chatbots against me. So good, right? And if I can use a chatbot to call up a customer service line that has to wait for an hour and has to argue with their chatbot, that's better use than I don't want to do that. Don't make me do it. So I think that it's positive now that consumers have the same tools that companies have been unleashing on us for a decade. David, what do you think?
Do you think it's going to get to the point where it comes down to the cost of service, where chatbots are great? Sometimes I prefer not to talk to a human in some scenarios, and sometimes I desperately want to talk to a human in other scenarios, right? But do you think
Mhm.
it's going to get to a point, and it may already be there, I don't know, but do you think it'll get to a point where it is a premium, and these people start to charge significantly more if you want that human interaction?
Well, it's such a good question, David, because there's a couple things. There already exists where if you talk to a human, they upcharge you. Like,
Mm.
you get upcharged to talk to a human, which is great. But this is what I wrote in my LinkedIn post. The new status today is actually being able to talk to a human. And I use, David, which we're both part of, I use my American Airlines. I'm a top tier status. I travel a lot. And for me, if I have a problem, I call 1-800 number, and somebody picks up the phone in 60 seconds or less and fixes my problem, right? That's what status is today. Status is when you have status, you get to deal with a human, right? The 5 tiers below me don't get a human. Me, I get access to somebody immediately, and we all have this. So the new status today is access to human. And think about that then. If you're a loan officer or a real estate agent, the status you give to your clients is access to you. And just think, we've had 2 decades of driving our clients to something else, to our team, now to a chatbot, to somebody other than me, because my time is so important. Just know your top status, your top clients get status is talking to you. And so that's what's a really interesting piece of this, David.
Unexpected note from the producer. Let's read it. The dead internet theory is an online concept which suggests that the internet no longer has mostly human activity. Instead, it claims that automated bots, artificial intelligence, and corporate algorithms create and control most online content and interactions.
Yeah,
Yep.
you know what's interesting? So, McKenna, in this New York Times article, actually gives you the exact data of how much is chatbot or AI-driven communication online. And the interesting part is how much is actually positive and how much is negative, because of the 51% of all content, all communication online is from a chatbot. From that, only 17% is positive. The rest is fraudulent. It's like the rest is like bad. So it's still, most of that activity is in a very negative way, not in a positive way.
Yeah. What parts of the mortgage process, Ron, do you think should be automated via AI or bot, and what areas should never be touched by AI?
Yeah, the things that are simply mechanical should be done by technology. And the things that are, I know I'm giving you a dumb answer, and the things that are absolutely human need to be done by a human. So a human doesn't have to analyze a tax return. That's simply math, right? And a human doesn't have to read documents. That's simple to do. But a human has to help a human understand things. And David, I think I, I did another post this week about AI versus humans. And the nature of the post was, look, AI is better than humans at so many things. But you know what AI is not good at? Is asking the question answering the question that wasn't asked. And so I'd read an article. I think it was a Bloomberg article or Wall Street Journal article, and it was like, why do investors pay extra to have a human help them? It's because a human can answer a question that they don't know to ask, right? Because the AI can't answer the question that you don't ask, but a human can go, hey, David, those are good questions, but you're not asking the right question. Here's the question you should be asking, and that's what we need. That's the role we need to play with our customers, say a home buyer. Look, all your questions about qualifying and all these other things are really great, but the most important question you need to ask is this, and this is what you should consider. And that's something that an AI, a chatbot, can't do.
This makes me think of a conversation you and I had just a couple days ago or a few days ago, Ron. Ron and I have been working on a new product, talking about a new product now for over a year, and I've mentioned it many times on this show. And we're getting close to launching the alpha stage of it. And
Tomorrow, Mike, just a little foreshadowing. Tomorrow,
yeah,
Mike,
there is a landing
tomorrow.
page that we had to build out that every one of our clients will have. I'm not going to tell you much about it, but there's a landing page, which we all know now that AI can easily build websites, landing pages, and so on. And Ron, I think, was lightly challenging on me the fact that we're paying someone to do this landing page architecture and so on. And I think what you said, Ron, right there was exactly my response. Was because it's a very integrated architecture and complex architecture, I'm not sure if I'm skilled enough to ask all the questions that I need to know to build this out in order to be able to scale it. And that's why I don't think I knew that's why I hired a human when we first started it. But now that you've articulated that and we've thought through that, that's exactly why decided to hire a human instead of using AI for it.
Yeah, that's wisdom. And David, I was arguing in that conversation that, look, if you gave the machine a chance and you gave it as much feedback as you gave to the website designer, it probably could have come up with a really reasonable product, which isn't necessarily the same expertise of a master's hand that said, hey,
Right.
you're giving me all good stuff, but to be first class, you got to answer these other questions. And that's the part that, because you're an artist and a perfectionist, that's what you're looking for, which I completely respect. And what most people, that's what you want when something's important to you. That's what you want. If it's not as important, then you don't care.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
Do I hear?
Usually,
are we getting the hook?
Yeah, you're getting that. You're getting dragged off the stage. So I kind of like this format. Like I said at the beginning, we usually do 3 main topics and 4 rapid fire, but I actually like the 4 just meaty topics, being able to spend more time without having to feel rushed. We got to get through all this. If you're still watching this, if you're watching this later, I'd love to hear from you. We'd love to hear from you. We went from 3 main topics where we spent 8 minutes and 4 rapid fire topics where we try to just take no longer than 3 minutes. Let us know. We'd love to hear from you. If you're watching this now or later, whether you like kind of us going more in depth on these, or if you kind of like the variety where our rapid fire, what our rapid fire offered. So if you've joined us, appreciate it. We're going to just assume that every week Mike's going to join us and pepper us with questions, which we appreciate. Keep them coming. Hopefully, I think we had an issue with going live on all of our channels today. We're live on LinkedIn right now, but not on our Facebook and YouTube. But we will try and get that figured out for next week. But if you've been with us, we appreciate it. We started with a cheers. We'll end with a cheers. So Slanjvar, and we'll see you next weekend, or next week, next Thursday. See ya.